pushed around kind of a white dude.
Carl, I promise I'm not trying to be a dick. I promise I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm trying to save you. Be very cautious about how you phrase this question, because I already know it's a bad question, and Mandis and I have talked about it before. So I just wanted you to come in cautiously on it. So there you go.
Wondering black people embraced.
What? Say that again, Carl.
Well, I'm trying to wonder why so many black people and people I admire embrace Christianity, given the history of racism and white nationalism in this country.
We have definitely talked about this before, and the same could be said. There are a lot of white evangelical Christians as well. So the very same Christian, well, there are a lot of Christians that white Christians that are just as blinded as black folks. Again, yes, this has been something that we have discussed before regarding the institution of enslavement and the enforcing of Christianity, but also the church being an institution that actually provided a sense of support when the legal system and when this country of America disfranchised and oppressed blacks. So we have to take that into consideration. And the fact that there were some very anti-slavery Christians, even though we can pick apart the aspect of, what they picked out from the Bible as far as being more Jesus-like. But when you look at the oppression that has been committed against the black community and the role the church has played, there must be an understanding. It doesn't mean that we agree with it. And certainly I cannot be the one who will, I can't be the one who saves everyone from it. You have to understand the deeper institutional factors that are a result of Christianity and white supremacy, and why many black folks still hold on to it. It would definitely be worth researching that. It would definitely be worth taking a look at some seriously historical factors, to do some research on the enslavement, the institution of slavery in this country, also the role that the church has played in actually implementing and creating schools and also other community services. So there are a lot of things that we can acknowledge that the church as an institution has done, but that the doctrine itself has been damaging.
The important thing that matters, remember, is that while the Bible supports slavery, Christians and many different Christians at different times both use the Bible to honor
all praises and the honor to YAHAWAH, BaHaSHam, YAHAWASHI, BaHaSHam, RAWCHAA, QADASH, and double honors to the elder apostles and the elder bishops of Great Millstone. Honors also to you other brethren, fellow believers of the truth, you sisters. Shalom to the elect. Anyway, I want to go in this video. I'm not going to go deep into the history of black Christianity in this video, but this video is called Why So Many Black People Embrace Christianity, which a lot of them are leaving. But how did we embrace it in a nutshell? And clearly white people know it. There's a white caller called in, and he said, why do black people embrace Christianity when it's through Christian nationalism was forced Christianity on us, conversion? So what you have to understand, what this white guy doesn't understand, and this black woman doesn't understand, going on both sides, we were oppressed as a nation of people for generations. So it's not like black people just woke up one day and said, wait a minute, we were in slavery. We shouldn't follow this, especially after your mother passed it on down, because that's normally who passes it down. I remember Easter, you got your shiny shoes and your obelisk around your neck with so-called necktie, the Egyptian deity, and you're rolling up and to visit white Jesus and believe white Jesus is the one that died and resurrected. That's what it is. And this woman here says black churches have done wonderful things and built schools and helped black children. And then you got to understand, from what? Through slavery. The only thing benefits came out of that was to benefit them. Reforming, converting, making you a different person than you originally were. Obviously, we followed different customs and beliefs. You know, we knew our Hebrew names and things like that. We were going off. Some of us were Muslims, following Islam and all various other things. But the Quakers' agenda was not just, the abolitionists was not just to free black people, but it was to make black people servants unto them. What better way, you know, and this is nothing new. In the ancient times, Antiochus and I believe Ptolemy, you know, you have them fighting for rulership, and hey, my slavery is better than your slavery. Come with me. We'll teach you Christmas. And before you knew it, black people got treated a little bit better. And you know what they did? They adopted it. Then they wanted to be part of it. And then they said, we want to be Christians. And another thing must be understood is when a white man took hold of Christianity, when he came into power, his whole mindset was to rule in a manner of false Christianity. A lot of them didn't want black people converting. They figured they were supposed to just be slaves. So you had the abolitionists and certain ones that say, no, we want to convert them so they could still be under us and they would make good servants. And then you had some said, no, just keep them in hardcore bondage. That's a whole nother video, but I want to read an article. So this black woman doesn't understand. She said, due to research, she doesn't understand the history about it. When the churches helped us, so to speak, it was in the benefit of them. Ask Margaret Sanger. Anyway, it wasn't to benefit us. By now, your history, your heritage has been stolen. Which is not only that, your land as well. Jeremiah 17:4. And even thyself shall discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in a land which thou knowest not, for ye have kindled a fire in my anger, which shall burn forever. Right? So, the land of his enemies. Now, when you think of slavery, you think of hardcore bondage, you think of one people, right? Mostly. This is what you think of. But somehow, after all the biblical history, we don't fit that part. Somehow, Jesus ain't even black now. Well, he was white, so-called. Now we found out and brought out the truth that he was black, so-called black. They don't even want that. They want to keep Christmas and Easter. Pagan deities. Pagan religions. Assyrian Babylonian religions. Semiramis, Tammuz. Right? The cross, the T. And various other things. Okay? So anyway, thus saith the Lord, cursed be the man that trusteth man, and maketh flesh his arm, and whose heart departeth from the Lord. So you ever wonder why you go to the Roman Catholic Church and they, you know, and then you had our people who was wicked. Originally, before this man came in power, we was following different gods and beliefs, right? But when he came into power, he amplified wickedness. And they'll sit there with that cross. That cross, when you go into the history, represents Tammuz, right? YAHAWASHI died on the instrument similar, but not quite like that. They would call it a crux. That Latin word was put in there as also a form of universalism. Now, we don't make a big doctrine out of it because he did die on the tree. Acts 5:29 said our Lord was slew and hanged on the tree. Ever wonder why crosses was burnt in our backyards while we were hung on trees? Wait a minute. The one you call Jesus is not a so-called Negro, not a so-called black man, but we've bared all the curses. Right? Doesn't make sense. Anyway, let me go to this article. I believe I read it before, but I'll read it again. I didn't read up this far. The story of African American religion is a tale of variety, and tale just means stories. A tale of variety and creative fusion. Enslaved Africans transported to the New World beginning in the 15th century, brought with them in a wide range of local religious beliefs. And there's history before that, but I'm just reading for the sake of the article. And practices. Diversity reflected the many cultures of linguistic groups, right? Like we spoke, we was Igbos, Yoruba, and various other dialects from which they come. The majority came from the west coast of Africa, the Israelites. You know, the story is in there, you know, Babylon, Timbuktu. But even within this area, religious traditions varied greatly. Islam had also exerted a powerful presence in Africa, right, which is a Roman Catholic religion. And you got to remember, these are our people, really, that set a lot of that up. You know, you go to the Byzantine, the Moors, like you will see a guy named Wilcox and Bay, something like that, or Rashad and Bay or whatever. They adopted a little Islam. That was a form of Islam. The more science, you know. Anyway, I'm not a historian on Moorish religion, but they got the crescent moon and all that stuff. Anyway, the majority, it says, but even within this area, religious traditions vary greatly. Islam also exerted a powerful presence in Africa. For several centuries before the start of the slave trade, an estimate 20% of enslaved people were practicing Muslims, and some retained elements of their practices and beliefs well into the 19th century, right? Catholicism, here we go, had even established a presence in areas of Africa by the 16th century. So it's easy to believe why, when we were sold into slavery, I'm not going to go too far in it, we know Amalek had the big hand in it, and you know, you had our people who were, some were Israelites who were practicing Islam. They were Israelites, but they didn't know. They would just decide to practice Islam, who made deals with other so-called Islam, Muslims, right? So it ain't like that we sold our own people. It was all a business deal, because you had slavery going on before the transatlantic slave trade. You had the sub-Saharan slave trade, and the Muslims had a big hand in that. Then you had our people, of course, just adopted into it, just like our people in America today adopted Islam. You would think they would own a gas station or a pizza parlor, but nope, not them. You just SHIT out of luck. Anyway, preserving African religions in North America proved to be very difficult. The harsh circumstances under which most slaves lived, high death rates, the separation of families, tribal groups, and the concerted effort of white owners to eradicate heathen or non-Christians. So again, this is what I was saying. You had some who felt like they had the power, they had the Bible, they had the religion, the belief, and anybody who didn't believe, they were killed, right? This is where you get the term, are you saved? If you're a believer, you're considered saved. This has nothing to do with Jesus coming back, floating with some sandals in the clouds. That went back to slavery, okay? So you had our people, you had them who didn't want to convert blacks into slavery, into Christianity. And then you had some, the so-called nicer ones, who felt we should be, but they didn't lift a finger. When we got bombed in those churches, like when we built the black churches and all that in the 1800s, and they kept firebombing the churches, right? It's just that they wanted our people under another rule of thumb, so to speak. I'm trying to keep it clean as possible. And they had, the hardcore whites who felt like this isn't our religion, it isn't our belief. This is why we were told we couldn't read the Bible. Then they set up different sectors and sent them out in little scattered in corners and set up men to preach the Bible to the families. This is where you get your these preachers in the churches from, right? But it was all beneficial at the end of the day, because that's what the Lord wanted. It was all beneficial to the owners. But what that really did, when we converted, it was worse, because now we've converted to a white Jesus. The worser of the worst false practices, and we idolized this man. They knew that if we were hardcore against it, we would be more rebellious. So they thought, well, let these blacks, let them become slaves. And if they become slaves, we can civilize them. And that's what they did. Anyway, I'm not going to read this whole thing. Difficult. It says, but these increasingly were combined in creativity ways with the various forms of Christianity to which Europeans and Americans introduced African slaves in Latin America, which Catholicism was most prevalent. Slaves mixed African beliefs and practices with Catholic rituals, just like we do. Every belief we have ever adopted, we adopted more and added more and added more. We always added sin to sin, man. And theology, resulting in the formation of entirely a new religion such as the voodoo of Haiti, later referred to as voodoo, right? So we see this all come from Roman Catholicism. Even Islam, all this comes from Roman Catholicism. Saturnalia in Cuba, Candomblé in Brazil, and there's a lot of history in Brazil. I'm reading a book on that. There's a lot of history on what the companies they made in Brazil and how they really wreaked havoc in Brazil, Primarily one of the places they went to first in Jamaica, for the sugar, that's another video. But in North America, slaves came into contact with a growing number of Protestant evangelical preachers, many of which actively sought the conversion of African Americans. I mean, this is a whole history. This thing is titled African American Christianity Part 1 to the Civil War. I will be reading this for a very long time, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. I just wanted to read some of it. It says, by 1810, the slave trade in the United States almost came to an end, and the slave population began increasing naturally, making way to preservation and transmission of religious practices by the time basically African Americans. So basically by then, the majority of the slaves, African Americans, so-called blacks, wanted to be Christians. And then you had some Christians that said, we don't want you to be a Christian. So they fought. So you had two things going on. They fought to be a Christian. Imagine adopting in a so-called occult that you would have never believed in, and through generations you wind up wanting to be part of it. The Most High is a powerful Most High God. YAHAWAH is was it Psalms 82? It says 42 and 6 or something like that. And it says, I'm not going to quote it, I'm going to get it. I know Psalms 82 and 6 says, ye are gods. I think it's 47 and 2. Let me get that real quick, because this is very relevant. You people, you messing with the Most High, man. And this is why you got a greater damnation soon to come, because we didn't hearken to the voice of the Lord. So it's interesting to see how these Christians are saying that whatever doctrine they have saying that we were adopted into Christianity. This was forced conversion. And Paul never said anything about that. He used guile or whatever, but he never said, if you don't believe, we're going to hang you and kill you. Psalms 47:2 said the Lord Most High is terrible. He's a great king over all the earth. So that word terrible means feared. He sets you up and bring you down. And the Lord really brought us down, man. But we're raising back up. And this is why the Most High is eradicating Christianity. And he's waking up his elect to the true biblical Israelites of the Bible. That's all I have on that. Shalom.